So how many of you growing up heard 100 times from your parents about the one friend that you weren't supposed to hang out with? Right? Everybody had the one. I still have Kurt, but everybody's got that one friend, and they tell you, I don't want you hanging out with them because their attitude is rubbing off on you, the way they act, the way they talk, So we learn real early on what we don't want. And I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of time spent on what you do want, like who you do want to hang out with and why that matters. And I noticed that becoming very relevant in business when we started trying to make connections with people, and it seemed like the bigger the deal that we were looking for, the bigger the contract, the more important the person that could green light that was. And what I found is it was a lot harder to get closer to people that walk in bigger circles and have more influence and have more authority. And so I started thinking, like, how do I make that happen? How many of you guys have read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Right, and it talks about if you want to be a millionaire, you need to surround yourself with millionaires, do what they do, apply those principles, and to some degree it should give you a measure of success. Well, I don't know about you, but when I was making $400 or $500 a week, I didn't run with a lot of million. I didn't even know anyone that had $1 million. And so I was trying to figure out, how do I accomplish that? The book says this is what you do, but how do you make that a reality in your life? So what I want to talk about this morning is the two things. The first one is that the Bible says that the one who walks with the wise will become wise, right? So that kind of follows that same ideology that when you position yourself around people that have wisdom, you yourself should be able to glean from that as you walk. So there was two questions here is what do we consider to be wise? Because the first thing that I think a lot of people get blinded by is financial success. Well, he has money, so he's got to be a successful person. He's got to have wisdom. He's got to have experience. There's something that I can glean from him just because of the type of car that they drive, the kind of house that they live in, because of how much money that they present that they have. But I challenge you to really consider what wisdom is so that when you're trying to position yourself to glean from the right people, you know what it is that you're looking for. So the Bible talks about fruits of the Spirit, and I don't think any of them have to do with your bank account, right? Talks about joy, peace, happiness, right? And so you can't measure that monetarily. And so when I think of someone who's wise that I want to position myself next to or that I want to glean from, I'm looking for somebody that has the fruits of the Spirit that come from that. Also professional fruits. Like I don't want to, I know a lot of people that are happy and have joy and have peace and have no money. So those aren't the people that I want to glean from either. So you want to make sure that you're looking for a balance of both. But one doesn't supersede the other, just to touch base on that. So anyone that I look at as successful, anyone that I would consider to be wise in business, they all have things that they do specifically and deliberately and consistently. Everybody has different things. If Warren Buffett talks about how he reads a minimum of 4 hours a day. That's just part of his daily routine, 4 hours a day. John C. Maxwell talks about that he has an hour of reflection every day, no matter what, on how productive his day was, whether he's going to repeat that process, whether that process added value to his business. Eric Thomas, he prides himself on waking up at 3 in the morning. Like I'm an early bird, but I'm not a 3 a.m. guy. And the truth is it isn't really what they do. It's just the idea that they're consistent in what they do. And so when you're looking at someone who you want to connect with, someone who you consider to be wise, you want to be looking for those things, the kind of person that they are, the fruits that they've bared both financially and in their character, and what their habits are. So as we get into that, I started to notice that there were two types of people that I typically saw as the circles got bigger. People that had really good reputations and people that had really good character. And over time, there was always a separation. So it was easy to have a good reputation short term, but I noticed that the people that had the character, where there was that consistency of their behavior round the clock, 7 days a week, no matter what their environment was, that their character is what birthed a reputation that they could be proud of. So if I move to a new community and I say that I'm successful and I say that I'm about the community and I say that I'm all these things, but after spending any length of time with me, you come to the conclusion that that's not the kind of person that I am, my reputation will fizzle out. But if my character shows you day in and day out, this is who I am, this is what I believe in, these are my core values, these are my core principles, then that in turn will give you the reputation that you want. So just those some things to consider as we're looking about how you want to define who these wise people that you want to run with are. So once you decide who they are, how do you get next to them? I have found from personal experience that the best way to do that is find out what's important to them and make it important to you. And a lot of times that takes more effort than you would think, because typically when we want to glean from somebody, we want to go up, right? We want to spend time with somebody who has been there, has done that has more than we do, that knows more than we do. That's the whole purpose of trying to get close to them, because we want to learn what they know. So typically it's not like you can give them money because they normally have more than you do. You know, you can't, they don't want to drive your car because their car is nicer than your car. You know, but you can find those common grounds that people look for. Charity, community service, church, nonprofits. Everybody has something that moves them. Especially what I found is the people that run in the bigger circles, these are the things that really push their buttons. Way more than their money, way more than their business. It's typically what they do with the resource that they get from their business. Denise, would you play that YouTube video for me? So some of you guys are relatively new to EDG, but when we first started, we had a desire to bring out a speaker. His name was Eric Thomas. Now he's one of the top motivational speakers in America, and I started following him on YouTube about 5 years ago. And so I just loved the message that he had. I loved the passion that he had. He was from the same neighborhood that I grew up in. Everything about this guy I was just drawn to. And so I'd made it up in my mind that I wanted to connect with him on a personal level. But I had no idea how to do this because he had written books. He does conferences all over the United States. And so I was trying to figure out for me what it was that was important to him that I could make important to me. Denise, go ahead and play that audio real quick.
Listen to me, guys. People say, E.T., you got on black and red. Why you ain't got on a red hat? Why? Because Detroit. Every time, I don't care what I'm wearing. When I go in my closet, I got about 50, 60, 59, 50. But I always seem to find that Detroit one and put the Detroit on. Why? Because of that pride. That's where I'm from. So when I travel, I want people to know where I'm from. It's pride. Why do I wear the hat? Because when I was a little kid coming up in Detroit, before Chrysler and GM and Ford went under, when I was a little kid, we could see Smokey Robinson. When I was a little kid in Detroit, downtown, you could see Michael Jackson. When I was a little kid in Detroit, Motown was booming. And Motown's struggling now, so I wear the hat because I got Detroit on my back. Everywhere I go, the book, you saw the cover of the book, it's that Detroit pride. Everywhere I go, I got pride. I rep my grandma when I get on the plane. I rep my mama when I get on the plane. I rep my sister when I get on the plane. I rep my uncles when I get on the plane. I rep Detroit, west side of Detroit. That's that pride.
So if you've never met this guy, or you've never heard from him, what can you gather by what you just heard? He's passionate about his city. I'm a Lions fan. I was actually born here, but 2 weeks later, my family moved to Detroit, and I spent the first 10 years of my life over there. But Texas is my home. My heart's up there, but this is my home. But Eric is passionate about Detroit. He's passionate because he sees the city in turmoil, and he has taken it upon himself as a personal burden to be an agent of change from the inside out, right? So the city mattered to him. He writes books. He does conferences, but essentially that's his heart's desire, is to move the city forward, right? Well, I've got family in Detroit, and one of my cousins is a photographer, but she's an architectural photographer, which means she doesn't do like headshots and candid shots. She does buildings and bridges and parks and things like that. Well, her passion is to find beauty in the city of Detroit. It's not a very beautiful city. It's not glamorous like New York or Miami or something, but she does a great job of capturing beauty in that. So what I did was I started taking the pictures that she would send to me, and I would put them on his Instagram. I'd put them on his LinkedIn. Like, I couldn't talk to him direct, but I would say, I thought you might appreciate this picture. I thought you might see value. You might see beauty in this picture. And then lo and behold, one day he shot me back, hey, who took this? It was because that's what moved him. That's what he was into, was the city. And so that created dialogue to get that started. So what I would say is that when you're looking to connect with somebody, find out what that, and now with Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, if you don't know something about the people you're going after, you're just lazy. Because the information is out there. They'll tell you what kind of books they read. They'll tell you what kind of movies they watch. They'll post what they do on the weekend, what college they went to. I mean, you have so much at your fingertips that where if you have not taken the time to figure out through their thread, through their digital footprint, you have no one to blame but yourself, because those are the things that are going to get you there. The next thing was regular random encounters and a pattern interrupt. How many of you guys went to the luncheon that Eric Gomez was talking at? You remember he was talking about the pattern interrupt? The cold call guy that says, listen, this is a cold call. I'm terrible at this. Do you want to hang up or do you want to give me 30 seconds? Right? He was talking about that being a pattern interrupt. It was just something different. You know, a lot of you guys have seen the business card that me and Denise pass out, the metal one. It's not because we're super important. It's a pattern interrupt. Something different, something to gauge your mind. So what you want to do is you want to accidentally run into the people you want to meet on purpose, infrequently. So how do you do that? Where do you go to church at? What school does your kid play soccer at? You know, where do you spend your time in the community? You know, so what we did was I told Denise, like, I want to just keep bumping into him. So we fly to Connecticut to go to a conference, and we make it a point to bump into him. He does this mastermind dinner thing, and so we just are going to show up and rub shoulders with him. Because what happens is it's never going to be that one time. We're just not that important to these people. You're not going to meet them one time and have this lifelong effect on them to where they're just going to want to reach out to you and help you out and lift you up and build you up. It doesn't work that way. But through consistency, what will happen is in their mind, they'll start to think, you know what? They must be of the same quality people that I am, because everywhere I go, I see them. We run in the same circles. We have the same friends. Accidentally on purpose. But you also have to know what you're going to say when you do it. Because one time, when one of these accidental encounters with Eric, he sits at the table with me and Denise. And I'm like, and Denise like grabs my hand and she starts kind of leading the conversation and telling them what we're doing. And this is right when we were trying to birth EDG, right when Pastor Calvin was getting the church. We were in Connecticut when that happened. You know, we're telling them these are the exciting things that were going on. And I found out even more so that, like, he's a minister. You know, so the idea of the church piqued his interest. So it was something different. It was the pattern interrupt of what we were doing. You know, the last thing is that it's a slow play game. So even when you're doing this, if you have success with it, and you're having these random purposed encounters, and you know what you're going to say, and you've kind of got your canned speech to get you closer to the people you want to get close to, just know that it's going to take time. All right, so consistent admiration and respect. Every time that we had a chance to talk, I would tell him how I loved the new videos that he did, how the workbook that he did for his second book, how a lot of these principles changed my life, how it helped me to grow professionally, how it helped me to grow personally, how it helped in my marriage. Now, I'm telling him because I respect his skill set for what he did. But I wasn't being a groupie. I wasn't trying to get his autograph. I wasn't trying to take a bunch of selfies with him, because I wanted him to know that I respected his experience and his accomplishments, but it wasn't flattery, because these guys get that all the time. People that are important, people that have influence, people that have resource, they're surrounded by people like that. So don't put yourself in that category. If you truly want to be able to run in a circle, befriend, and be able to glean from these people, you have to be looked at as a colleague, not as a groupie. And so it's important that you know the difference between respect and flattery whenever you're doing that. So walk with them. So this now you've decided who is important to you. You've given them value based on their character, based on their fruits. You've determined that it's not all about money, that it's about consistency. You've seen that they have habits that they display that are consistent, that seem to continue to push them forward. Right now you've purposed yourself to be around them accidentally on purpose enough times to where they know at least who you are. So here's the next thing. How do you add value to them? When Eric was talking about some of the things that he did, he said that he was a representative for the college that he went to, Michigan State, and that they were playing in the Cotton Bowl here, and one of the things that he was tasked to do was to like go in at halftime and sort of give the pep talk to the team. Well, they were playing at the Cotton Bowl here in Dallas, New Year's Day, and so I reached out to him and I said, hey, listen, if you need anything while you're in town, if you need a ride, if you need anything, just call me. Me and Denise are here for you. And he said, well, you know what? It's funny you say that because we were trying to plan out our week, and Nike had us contracted to do this, this, and that, and something canceled. You know, they're going to pay me, but I'm here, and I hate wasting my time. You know, I wonder if we could put together a real quick sort of an intimate mastermind, if we could fill up a small room. He goes, and you and Denise said that you guys had an auditorium. Do you think we could use that if we wanted to? I said, absolutely. I mean, he could have very easily purchased a venue much bigger than this room, which is where we had it. But it was the idea that he knew that we were open to do that. We presented it. We wanted to add value to him. So we were all excited. A lot of people pay $30,000, $40,000 to have him come into a room, and he was just going to come here, and we were just going to get to kind of get front row seats to this whole show. Well, the day that he's coming down here, he says, half my team missed the flight. They were trying to get on the standby pass. It was less expensive, and so they didn't make it here. So he's gonna have a registration problem. So like we huddle up in the back, me, Denise, my mom, my dad, Nathan. We're like, okay, you go to Walmart, you get the folders. I'm going to Kinko's. I'll print out what he needs. Denise, can you set up the registration table over here and check the names? So essentially, we became his back end support system since his staff wasn't here. So that was like the support that we were able to give him. So when you're looking at the people you want to connect with, look at what they do. It's hard. It's hard on the surface, but when you really see the areas that moves them, you can find ways to add value to what they're doing. And I promise that's a key thing. And knowing that you don't expect anything in return, because there's a difference between chasing like a mentor and trying to build a relationship. You know, Mike Muni talks about reciprocity being a key component of a good friendship. Well, you're not chasing a friendship here. You just want to start to blossom a relationship. So you're giving to just give. You're not giving to get. I didn't call him and say, hey, the next time you're in town, I need some free tickets since we helped you out with your registration, since we paid for all the stuff to get printed out. We just gave. We gave just to give, just to show him that we wanted to add value. Public recognition. I don't know about you, but even though Denise is my wife, she always does such a good job of encouraging me privately and publicly. She's always building me up. And I can't tell you how much that means to me and how much it encourages me from the inside out. Okay, when you have friends and colleagues that do the same. You know, there's something about public recognition that's different. Denise used to work at Countrywide, and I would send her flowers, and it was a big deal. Well, then when our little ones were small and she was at the house, I sent the same flowers, and I just got kind of a different response. Something about women getting flowers when other women can see was just different than getting them by themselves. So think about that, as if even if you have admiration for somebody, even if you have respect for somebody, you know, vocalizing that publicly will take you leaps and bounds where you want to go as far as building relationships. and you got to be genuine about it. If it's one thing that I know consistently across the board is that everyone that I have ever tried to purpose a relationship with that is on a higher level or a level that I want to be at is that they can spot a lack of genuineness like that. It's like a gift. It's almost like as you purpose yourself to be around stronger and stronger people that push you, one of the first things that you do is you pull away from the people that are fake. So you have to be genuine about it. You can't just stand in front of somebody and start building them up, and then it sounds like you're a groupie and not that you respect them. So just that public admiration goes a long way. We say that the fakers don't get to run with the movers and shakers. So the last thing that I would say about that is when you're doing that, a lot of times, and I was guilty of it, is I'm thinking, okay, well, I've got my professional life and what I'm going to do. So the wife, the kids, the family, like all that is sort of on this side, and I'm going to go do my business over here. And what I found is that the real relationships that I want, that like these are the things that were the glue that made it happen. Right? When Eric was here, he was upstairs and getting ready to do his thing, and it was his daughter's birthday, right? Was the day that he was down here. And so he told me, listen, because I was really hoping that we were going to like hit it off and be best friends and email each other jokes, and but he was all business when he got here. He said, look, it's my daughter's birthday. I'm going to come in. I'm going to do my 60 minutes. I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to go because it's my daughter's birthday, and I told her that we were going to spend some time together. And so I was a little disheartened at first. And so when we're upstairs, I'm being very mindful of the time. Well, his daughter and his wife were sitting at the table in the back talking to Denise, and I don't know what they were talking about, but at one point I saw them clench hands, and then they started crying, and they started laughing, and like they were having a real like moment. And I saw Eric noticed it, and as he was watching his clock for every second before that, he just kind of stepped back and let that moment happen. It was about 25 minutes. I mean, we started late because of that. Like, he wasn't going to interrupt whatever was going on with his wife and his daughter and Denise because his family was important to him. And whatever happened between Denise and his wife and his daughter, and to this day, I still don't know. It caused his wife and his daughter to want to get to know our kids. So Trinity and Justice are in the back while Eric's up here talking, and they're joking around, and they're climbing all over his daughter and his wife, and they had this little magazine for, how many of you guys know what an American Girl doll is? It's a ridiculously priced, oversized Chucky doll for girls. And so my daughters are telling me how they want one of these, right? And I'm like, I tell Denise, how much is this? I said, well, we're not going to do that. There's no way we're dropping that kind of money on a doll. But she's having this conversation with the kids, and she's showing them the magazine. Well, we leave, and afterwards, I try to run up to Eric, and I really try to kind of get a kind of a buddy friend thing, try to convince him to stick around. Hey, man, let me take you out for a steak, and we'll go hang out. And he's like, man, I got to go. He gets in the car, and he heads out. Now, somewhere between the drive from here to Dallas, which I was crying about anyway because I wanted him to stay here in Fort Worth, and he was pretty adamant about staying at the hotel that he was at, but come to find out that the hotel he was staying at was connected to the American Girl doll store. It's like a Neiman Marcus for dolls. It's a whole it's ridiculous. So on the way from here to the hotel, his people, I guess, called and said, listen, Eric would like to have breakfast with you, your wife, and your kids tomorrow morning at the hotel before he flies back to Detroit. Can you do that? And I'm like, this is all I wanted. I just wanted some time to hang out with Eric. I was like, yes, we'll be there. And as we were talking, I asked him, what happened? And the truth is, he didn't say like, man, I just was so taken by your group and your organization, and I just love what you guys are doing. I just want to be your best friend. He said, man, my wife and your wife, they just had some kind of a connection, and I guess my wife was talking to your girls about these dolls, and so she had this gift card that she wants to give to your daughters. And what were the girls, like 5 and 6? They gave her like a $300 gift card for that doll store. I want you guys to go next door and get these dolls right as soon as we leave. right? It was the idea that we opened, or I say we, Denise, like opened up her heart on a personal level that really solidified that relationship. You know, so many times we want to say, well, look, I sit on the board of this, I drive this kind of car, you know, I make this much money, I'm going to impress my way in. And it's never like that. The people that really can change your life are just people. You know, but they're protected. They protect, you know, what happened. So you have to go first. You have to extend that trust first. And I promise you, when you do that, like the wall will come down and they will reciprocate that trust. You know, to this day, like we have a beeline to Eric. I mean, we don't hang out and talk. I think probably the girls text his wife more than we text each other. But I mean, that was a key part of that. Birthdays, soccer games. I can't tell you how many times someone had shown up to a thing for our kids, somebody that I do business with or a colleague of mine, whether it was when the girls were doing their ballet or their gymnastics, and I was just like, wow, man, that really meant a lot to me that they took time out of their day and out of their schedule, or especially if it was a Saturday thing, you know, to come and support my kids. And instantly they're a little closer in my circle. You know, so I would say that these are things that I know from experience can work. I know they will. You know, there's we talked in the beginning about when we were kids, our parents telling us who not to hang out with, right? So it says in 1 Corinthians, it says, don't be misled, bad company corrupts good character. Well, we have established that, right? But your commitments can develop you or destroy you. But either way, they'll define you. So I would say this. If you have someone that you want to purpose a relationship with, be committed to that process. Be yourself. Be genuine. Allow your motives to get behind you and try to serve them. Try to add value to them. And I promise you, as those walls start to come down, you know, connect your family with their family. Make what's important to them important to you. And you'd be surprised. And then once those relationships start, it's kind of funny how now when I think about it, you know, I'm sitting at the table with Eric and I'm starstruck. A couple years ago, I can't even talk. Denise has to like slap me in the back of the head, you know, to where we have, not only do we talk, but we have common friends. You know, David Shands with Sleepers for Suckers out in Atlanta. He was part of that kind of a crop of a speaker, and now he's an author. Mark Menard out in Ohio. These are all people that were connected with Eric, and through our relationship with him, spawned relationships with other people, and it's just really cultivated something special to where the value that I've gotten out of the people that were connected to Eric have added more value than our connection with Eric. So as you climb that ladder, keep these things in mind. I hope that each and every one of you purposes to make those relationships. If you don't have the time and the effort to do that, you can always just join EDG and you'll fast track that process. So, but in all seriousness, I do think that it's important. And if you don't have someone that you have your eyes on, I would encourage you to find somebody. Set a goal to make that relationship. You'll be happy that you did. So I appreciate your guys' time.